Good evening. This is call to order the Lyft board for April 12th, 2018. Time is 6:31. We'll begin with the roll call. Carol Brziak.
Here.
Okay. Cindy Christensen.
Here.
Jason Henderson. Here. Nicholas Millar. Here. Joseph Areno. Here. Jack Reinchecke. Here. And Kevin Seiler is here. Patrick Driscoll indicated he may not be able to attend tonight. Wendy said she was not going to be able to attend. Tiffany Hooten has, am I pronouncing that right? Joined us tonight, so thank you. I'd also like to, Mr. Kemp has joined us, thank you. And I'd also like to thank our neighbors for joining us tonight as well. Next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes. Again, I want to thank Cindy for taking the minutes in Carol's absence last meeting. It's greatly appreciated. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Are we supposed to move the public comment?
We have to do that. That's in our bylaws, so we would have to have a discussion, and then there's got to be a hearing, and we can have that, and we can put that on the agenda to discuss. But until we make that formal change in our bylaws, we cannot do that. But we can definitely have that discussion. So is there a motion to accept the minutes as provided?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion regarding the minutes? All those in favor of accepting the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries. Now it is time for public comment. The public is welcome to make any comments. Again, the comments are limited to 3 minutes, and we ask that you tell us your name when you start your comments. Any of our neighbors wish to make some comments?
I just have some short ones. Good evening, Lyft Board. My name is Jeannie Erickson, and I live in District 1, real close to your only urban renewal site left, Columbine Square. My neighbors and myself are very excited to see that the buildings are now being torn down, clearing the site so homeless are no longer occupying the buildings. I've attended all 3 of the city-held meetings regarding the Bellevue corridor. At those meetings, I spoke with many of my neighbors, and they are very concerned about what will be built at Columbine Square site at the corner of Federal and Bellevue. The consensus seemed to be that retail offices or a business of some sort would be the best fit for this neighborhood, which is what it's zoned for, and it already has its fair share of apartments. I also want to let you know that just because my neighbors don't attend your Lyft meetings does not mean they don't watch them at home and that they don't care about what's going to be built at Columbine Square site. They do care. Thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is the financial report, and I'll turn it over to Tiffany.
Good evening. I do apologize for not having page numbers. I realized that I did not put them on there. I'm so sorry, and I did see in your minutes that that was a request on the minutes, so I will strive to get those on there the next time, I promise. So I just wanted to give you kind of an update on the financial information related to Lyft as of February 28th. Again, the timing of the closing of March and the meetings is tough to get March prepared, but I did want to let you know that the city did deposit $73,896 into your Wells Fargo account in March related to sales tax increment for the Columbine Square area in accordance with the agreement. So I just wanted to note that that's not an information you have before you because it did occur in March, but I just wanted to let you know. The budgeted amount was $60,000, so it did come in quite a bit higher than I had anticipated myself. So, one of the requests at one of the previous meetings was to see a balance sheet. There were some questions as to the loan balances and how that's reflected. So the first report that you have in your packet is a balance sheet as of February 28th. And the few things that I did want to note is that the accounts payable and other current liabilities that's listed there at $152,338. That's the remaining amount of property tax refunds that need to be funded to the taxing entities. And I do want to talk a little bit about that a little bit later. It's on the agenda related to those refunds that haven't been processed yet. I just want to discuss the reason for that and how we can move forward. The due to primary government, that's the $150,000 loan that's due to the city of Littleton. So that is showing as a liability for that. The 2534 that's listed there is the interest on the loan. Again, I'll remind you the agreement with the city of Littleton is that it to be paid in by December 2019. It's December 19th, if I remember correctly. That loan would be full and due to the city of Littleton. The cash amount at the top is the amount of cash you actually have in the bank currently. It's the $392,278. That's the property tax amount that still needs to be refunded, the $152,000. And then it also includes the sales tax increment, essentially, that the LIFT has received from the city, and then proceeds from any loan that are still on to about $30,000 or so. You'll go to the next page. This is just more informational for you. It kind of gives a summary of all of the transactions, revenues, and expenditures on a budgetary basis from January 1, 2016 to February 28, 2018. I think this is good for you to see the total amount of property tax revenues that's been received by all of the jurisdictions, and then the sales tax increment as well. And then the refunds are also reflected in there along with operating expenditures over the last 2 years. So you can see over the last few years, it's been about $344,000 to the lift. Do you have any particular questions on that? It's just a summary again of the last few years.
Charges are paid to the city for the Single Audit Act.
No, the audit charges for the $900, that was actually when Lyft filed for an exemption through the state. If you don't have an audit, you have to file an exemption. Otherwise, it's actually included in the city's audit.
Tiffany, can you request or waive the audit year after year? Or is there a limit to how many consecutive years you can waive the audit?
You know, I'm not aware of any number of years. I could certainly look into that to see if there's a limitation on the number of years you can waive it. But there is a revenue limit, so if you're,
Right.
I believe it's $500,000 or less
Right.
in total revenues, you're not required by state law to have an actual audit.
So maybe that's the limiting factor rather than...
In a time, it could be, yes. Yeah, would you like me to follow up?
No, I can look it up. Thank you.
And the other charges, I know it's just miscellaneous, but is it the wire charges, things like that?
It is, it's bank fees and wire charges, yes.
And since we're discussing legal services this evening, have you any idea what the scope of those services were?
For the legal fees, I know part of it was for attendance to the board meetings.
Okay.
The U.S. attorney, and preparation or review of the budget amendments or the budget itself, the resolutions. He has to attest to those. Prior to that, I'm not aware of what those expenses were specifically for.
Most of those were incurred when it wasn't a city attorney. They retained services of a firm to help the city.
Right. report looks fairly blank. So this is all of the funds that we currently have for Lyft for January and February of 2018. The only revenues that are reflected are interest earnings on the Collar Trust account. So for the 2 months, it was $720. There have not been any expenditures for the last 2 months for Lyft. The next few reports.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Looking at the current fund balance for North Broadway, you stated earlier that is to be refunded.
Yes.
So we would see, after we do the refund, that that particular so-called blighted area would zero out.
Yes, absolutely. And I can discuss it a little bit more when we talk about the refunds. Yes, that is exactly why there is a fund balance in that one currently.
Does this indicate that we did not give North Broadway a full refund of their property tax increment for the first year?
Yes.
I thought we
For the-
explained what, because I know that we approved to return funds.
Right. I guess I can go ahead. We have an agenda item.
Well, if you want, okay, I can wait.
Okay, yeah, if we could just do that, we'll wait till that
Okay.
discussion. It's next anyway, so, but it is an actual agenda item.
Okay.
So if we can hold off,
You
then
bet.
I can certainly talk to that. All right, and the next few pages are just the individual funds themselves. So the previous page was all of them kind of accumulated. This one actually shows you what the 2018 budget was for each fund and where we are as of February 28th. So again, this first one is the general fund. You can see the $720 of interest income in that fund, and as compared to the budget. The next report is Columbine. So Columbine has a very small fund balance in it, and the reason is because we budgeted to transfer the sales tax revenues into the general fund from Columbine. So the $154 is property tax revenues that were received in previous years, because those were not refunded. Columbine is still active and current, so the property tax revenues will stay in there. Littleton Boulevard, this is one that is no longer viable and valid, and so that's showing a zero. We did zero out that one. North Broadway, again, you'll see a fund balance with no transactions in 2018, and that's related to property tax refunds, which we'll discuss shortly. The last one, again, is Santa Fe. That was another urban renewal area that is no longer in existence, and so, again, we zeroed out that fund as well. The last page is just a bank register listing. It shows the operating account and the Collar Trust account. It shows you the beginning balances of 2016 and all the transactions in 2017 and 2018, so that the total ending cash balance is $392,277.92 at February 28th. And then below that is the list of services or expenditures out of those accounts. So all in all, current cash available is $392,277.92. About $152,000 of that is still due back to the taxing entities. Above that is funds available for Lyft through sales tax property or sales tax increment income. Do you have any specific questions?
ECI is an abbreviation for,
I believe that was there was a firm. Carol, you might help me.
It was the marketing firm.
Marketing firm, right? Yes.
Was that the training for the urban renewal, non-urban renewal?
It was a marketing firm that the city hired, and Lyft used it to do their dog and pony shows. They were doing the website. They were responding to inquiries on phone calls.
Oh, actually, Carol, I think DCI was the training
Oh,
that
it's
you
that
and
training,
Karina
yeah.
Oh,
went to.
Yeah.
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm hearing CIG.
There's another one.
Downtown Colorado Inc., and it was for training.
okay, thank you.
I don't know why Karina got a better deal than I did, but
You went for for 2 days, she went for 1. No, I don't know.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the financial report as presented?
So moved.
Second? Second. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting?
Excuse me, I have one more question, just to make sure I understand our long-term and short-term liabilities. On page 1, due to the primary government's long-term liability, because that's more than a year out.
Yes.
Accrued interest is a short-term liability, that's less than a year. It has to be paid this December, is that correct?
It does not have to be paid separate or annually.
So
would
it
be a
gets
long-term
accrued,
as well.
okay, so we have a bow tie. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor of accepting the financial report, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Next, we have committee reports. We'll start with the one from the website. We were unable to set up a time. We will correct that this next coming month after the meeting. If Cindy and Nick can meet with me, we can try to nail down some times in the next couple of weeks. That would be great. And if either Carol or Joe would like to join us, just let us know. And we will. So if you can stay after the meeting, we just come up with a time for the 4 of us to get together.
I think we should probably do that in a meeting rather than outside of a meeting, so that it's on the public record.
Well, it'll be announced, because it'll be a study session, and it will be announced formally when we set that up.
We should probably set our, but within this, the context of this meeting, we should not be having a meeting outside of this meeting to make a decision, so
Okay.
we could come up with a.
Well, we weren't going to make a decision, we're just going to discuss.
Just like a recommendation.
Yeah, it's just a work study to make recommendations.
Yeah,
It's not to actually, because the full board will decide
It
how
was-
those recommendations.
It was that the group would come back in next month.
You're going to get into the weeds a lot, and it wouldn't be worth it for the rest of the board to, we don't want you to come back with a decision.
Well, I just know the law says anytime that we get together to discuss public business, that we need to be doing it in front of the public, and it concerns me that we adjourn a meeting and then we go and more than 3 of us meet.
Yeah. So if that's a study session, what is the proper way for you to do it?
You can easily do a committee meeting. The committee meeting, if it's 4 members, can be posted as a committee meeting, a study session. It doesn't have to be televised. The city council's policy on boards and commissions is that study sessions and council meetings do, but smaller type committee meetings may or may not be, depending on the location and situation. And so certainly the city clerk and myself could work with you on making sure you're posted properly for a committee meeting on that.
So the rest of us wouldn't have to
Right.
be there. You could just post it. It's fine. That way, if an interested public wanted to show up and listen.
We're going to follow that, and I think the issue is, do we need to have a public forum to discuss when we're going to meet? And I'm not sure that is necessary.
That's not required. I mean, just saying if the meeting is not an action item, it's not taking any kind of official business, that is not required and beyond an agenda. You could afford, 4 members of the committee could work with the city clerk and myself and say, we're going to meet, we have these 3 dates of availability. Because that's not an action.
Okay, thank you. So the next committee would be our lawyer search committee, or legal, or a council search committee, I think that's what we called it. So we have a report.
Yes, we do. I apologize, first of all, for not having the minutes earlier. Like I said before, I had delayed access to my email. But we have a copy before you. Jason and I met a couple of times, and a lot of our research that we did was in speaking to council who have represented urban renewal authorities, been involved in eminent domain, and then also some in firms who don't specifically focus on this sort of law, but have attorneys who've represented special districts or perhaps investment companies obtaining funding through urban renewal. So we spoke to a variety of different sorts of attorneys to get both an idea of what they would imagine, hypothetically, what kind of a scope of representation could exist, what a fee structure could look like, when that representation might be useful. And coming from that is the recommendation that we do move forward with hiring an attorney for the authority to provide services and counsel on an as-needed basis. I'll just walk through the memo really quickly. So that's the recommendation. Authority, the citation to the bylaws, they're stating that the authority may hire an attorney. The scope of services, what we're recommending at this time is that we go ahead and hire somebody at least on a limited basis, and that relationship can grow if and when a project arises or if and when a need arises. I know at the last or 2 meetings ago there was some concern about accruing attorney's fees for somebody to attend a meeting before that is necessary. So mindful of that and kind of balancing what the need is, we're not necessarily recommending that we hire an attorney to be present at every meeting on a go-forward basis. But in speaking to specifically some of the eminent domain urban renewal attorneys that I spoke to, they thought that it could be very useful to have an attorney at least on an hourly basis that could be called as things arise to answer questions. That gives us control over the fees that we're paying because we're only calling when necessary, and at least makes them available to us. And then obviously, if and when a project comes or if a sensitive issue arises, then that can grow. With respect to fees, there were some questions about fees a couple of meetings ago as well. The top rate that I found among eminent domain attorneys when they're working with private parties, I don't know if they make adjustments when answering an RFP, was $375 an hour. And those are partners in firms where their names show up on the title of the firm. So it seems like there can be something more reasonable than I think some numbers were upwards of 500 discussed a couple meetings ago, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Timing, I think I already kind of touched this, but we think we should begin the process to hire as soon as practical. And the reason for that is we just don't know when the need for one will arise. And if we have an established relationship, we can go as soon as the need presents itself rather than starting an RFP selection process when the need arises, which could create some serious delays. Meeting attendance, I think I've already said this. We're not making a recommendation at this time whether someone should attend every meeting. I don't know that that's necessary, but I think the board can discuss that based on what's in front of it. And just one thing that that kind of stuck out to me in speaking to one of the attorneys who does a lot of eminent domain work, and I don't know the case exactly, but she said in Jeffco right now, she just gave an example. There's a case pending regarding urban renewal and a challenge to an urban renewal project, going all the way back to the time a site was designated as blighted, and concerning whether or not there was appropriate notice of the blight of that designation. So something that small can lead to a lawsuit, which is going to cost that urban renewal board much more than it would have to handle that process properly earlier. And I don't know what that lawsuit, the status of it, how early it is, if it's even going to last, but that stuck out to me.
In this process, have you looked at what an RFP would look like and the qualifications of a firm would be part of that? If we go put that out looking for a firm, there may be firms that we write that up and they say, and I think when we do an RFP, we have to say this is the relationship today, and it may potentially go to this, so they understand that going in. But also, I think if you can, I'd like to see an RFP developed. It's what we're looking for, that we all sit down and we understand, this is the type of firm we're looking for that meets these qualifications and what we'd want to see presented to us by a firm before we put that out. I just want to be clear with everybody what we're looking for. I think it's important that we we get a firm that has experience in this area, not, let's just say, eminent domain, because I don't, hopefully, that's a negative connotation, and it's really not, I don't think it's potentially going to be part of this project at all. But urban renewal, again, there's going to be a lot of sticky things that can go wrong with that, and we want to have a firm on board that would be able to help us navigate that if we get to that point.
Ideally, you write the RFP, and I've worked on a lot of RFPs, and you write it such that you eliminate the firms that are not interested in taking this work, because you lay out honestly what it is that you're looking for and what you're not looking for, and that sifts out a bunch, and you get responses, and then either in a committee or in a group, we would go through the process of evaluating those and ranking them. But I think, absolutely, I think.
Do we have a timeline for something like that?
I would, the sooner the better. I mean, if we could, if the committee can continue to meet and probably put some things together, and even possibly have Mr. Kemp review it, in case, always have more eyes looking at it, and then bring it to the full committee, possibly next meeting, then we could get that out there, because I think it is important. We may start, again, just based on some of the activity that's gone on now at that site, we may see something, and we do want to be prepared for it. I think it's very prudent for us to do that, and if we could get something out there after the next meeting, that would be great. Think that works, Carol?
Oh, I think I think the sooner the better, I agree, absolutely.
Good.
Great. So we'll move forward in drafting an RFP and working with Mr. Kemp for.
Do we need a motion for us?
I think we probably need a motion to.
May I ask a question? Because when I listened to your discussion, I think you concentrated on firms that deal in eminent domain and protection of that process for the city. As I look at need for counsel, we're going to have to go to an election. And is it the city attorney that helps us with the election, or is it our counsel that helps us prepare for that election? And then number two, as I have looked at various urban renewal authorities around the town, Dura is the big boy around town, and they have to go to District Court number 2 to assure financial confidentiality for the developer. Do we have to do the same thing to our district court? And if we do, is it the city attorney that does that, or will we have to use our own counsel to assure that a developer's confidential financial information remains confidential? So those are just two aspects I thought of.
It's two questions, first of all, we still do have a wonderful relationship with the city attorney that, so that we have Mr. Kemp's services. But the whole idea here, so I don't know. We'd have to look at that question and find out, is that one that we need to go to I don't know the answer.
Yeah, so that's why I said, think about it as you develop your RFP.
Yeah.
Because the scope of work could be a little bit broader than maybe you were looking at.
I think the reason for interviewing attorneys who knew a lot about eminent domain is because it just tended to be something where those same attorneys knew a great deal about city municipal business, and it was a shorthand.
Yeah, and the ones that I spoke to have all worked with urban renewal authorities in one fashion or the other, either representing or transaction. And I did speak with a couple firms that really don't have a background in it, but are on more of the developer side of things. And I don't know, and maybe Jason and I can discuss this a little further, whether it makes sense to cast a net, at least in the beginning, that's a little wider than the normal limited group of attorneys who have dealt very explicitly in representing urban renewal authorities, just to see what is out there, and precisely for answering questions.
Well, and you can eliminate the ones who gave back an answer that was unsatisfactory.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not, in my comments, I'm not criticizing
Yeah.
All I'm just suggesting is, as you write your RFP, think a little bit broader than just eminent domain and how the city
Yeah.
protects itself.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I can look back in my experience. I remember a loan that we made long ago that everything went fine on it until the citizens took it to court, and something that happened 2 years prior at a city council meeting caused the judge to throw the redevelopment out. Very expensive loan. You don't want that to happen.
Just a thought I would throw out is that for most of what I would see that you're doing, you're really looking for someone who is experienced in local government and governance of local government. Depending on if there were to be a project, and I use that if because there may well not ever be a project at Columbine. There's no requirement that a property owner has to use urban renewal. So a property owner in today's market, depending on the project, it might just be commercially financed. If they did use urban renewal and there was a project, you might at that point actually retain a separate counsel with more of a financial and project background to get deeply involved in the due diligence and conceivably if you ended up with a tax increment financing agreement and some of those things, that counsel might be far more specialized than what you would normally have for day-to-day governance items.
Makes sense. Excellent.
Also, I'd like to see some thought put into it is, okay, who makes a decision to call the attorney to a meeting?
Yeah.
Do we have to have the whole board do it, or can the chairman do it? It's just a matter of
That is a.
to make it, you know, to make it so it fits within the budget.
Yeah, no, precisely, yes. Yeah, because we have to be good stewards of the budget. You know, one option, we don't have to decide this now, but one option could be that somebody, a member of the board, could make a recommendation. I think we'll have questions for an attorney that might need to be a lift attorney and leave the authority to actually call the attorney to the meeting. That might be an answer. Again, we don't have to decide this now, but.
No, and I think Mr. Kemp has committed to any point where he sees there's a conflict.
Yes.
He will let us know that this is time I got to step out and you need somebody else to advise you. So that helps. That helps a lot right there if we get into some.
I do like the idea of the authority to engage the attorney in a meeting resting with the chair or the city attorney or one or both. You know, I like that so that you know, I can't personally just willy-nilly call an attorney.
Call him to be here tomorrow and we've got a bill.
Yeah. I think definitely with the chair.
And we can have those discussions as we start fleshing this out and we get closer to where that need may arise.
Well, you'll know what the agenda is prior to the meeting, so you'll have a better handle on what we need.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So RFPs.
So do we have a motion to accept this recommendation? I would say with I would look for modification to work on an RFP to bring back to the board.
Yeah, so moved.
We better make that so we know exactly what the wording is. I'm sorry to be a stickler.
Can I move on something that is our committee, or does it need to be a third party?
No, you can move, for example, you could make a motion to adopt the committee's report and to direct that the committee prepare a request for proposals for review by the board.
Okay, I move that the board adopt the legal committee's report and direct the legal committee to draft an RFP with an eye towards hiring an outside attorney.
For a second.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Carol?
I'd like to amend the motion and put a timeline. That,
Oh, yes, of course.
It come back to us for the, what, May meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have a motion to make an amendment?
I just did.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we'll vote on the
I have a
amendment
question.
first.
Yeah, I have a
Okay, we
question.
have a question on the timeline.
Is 30 days enough for you gentlemen to prepare that?
I think so. If
Because
he's
we have
got
10 days.
RFP process.
Yeah,
then
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So, on the on the amendment, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. On the original motion, those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? So moved. Thank you very much for your report and your work.
Sir, what date is the May meeting? Just so that I have it down.
That would be the 10th. Okay, now we get to unfinished business with the further discussion on the property tax refund. And I'll turn it over to you, Tiffany.
So as I mentioned earlier, the North Broadway Fund does still have a balance of $152,338, and that's the remaining portion of property taxes that were received after May 2017 that have not been refunded. The initial attempt was that they were going to be refunded in 2017 by the end of the year, and they were not because an issue came up in December and January where there was a concern that there could be abatements on the property that we've already collected property taxes for, and so there's a potential that there may be refunds that are due back to property owners in these areas that we've already collected. So we reached out to the county to get a recommendation on doing what I would consider kind of a retainage for the lift. So I wanted to ask for direction from the board tonight. We would recommend of the $152,338 that all but $25,000 of it would be refunded. In order to do that, we would need to amend the 2018 budget. So I would offer that occur at the next meeting to do an amendment to refund that in 2018. The statute of limitations, I believe, for abatements on the property is December of 2018 this year. So we would hopefully know everything by the end of the year. Any open items out there or refunds due. Currently, there's already a liability of about $1,300 that is due back to these property owners that the county has already processed for that. So we're just concerned that there may be more or potential for more properties over the next year. So rather than refunding all of it to the taxing entities and then essentially trying to get the money back from the taxing entities was the issue. And so I would recommend that we retain about $25,000 till the end of the year, till we know the final abatement amounts from those properties. So 2 questions. One would be, do you authorize the refund other than anything above $25,000 to the current taxing entities? And then in order to do that, we would need to amend the 2018 budget.
And you're recommending that occur next meeting? So it has to be posted?
It does. There's a posting requirement, yes.
The 152 is property tax increment that we've collected for which year?
It's for the funds were deposited in 2017 for the months of June through December.
And it's just for the North Broadway area?
It is.
We're not concerned about any kind of abatement for the other 2 areas?
I am not at this time. There are very few properties in those areas, and we haven't seen any abatements come through yet, so I'm not concerned with that at this time.
And the abatement, the first one that was refunded was $1,300 from the county?
Yes.
The county went ahead and paid the property owner.
Yes,
So do we owe the county in any way?
we do, but they net it with
Okay,
the
all right.
collections that were
Okay.
received.
Okay.
So yes,
And is that how the abatement for the following year, year number 2, would be handled? They would just go ahead and rebate to the property owner and then net it out of the increment that they...
they would, but the issue is that you're no longer.
There's no longer
collecting
any increment to collect.
increment
Okay,
To offset
okay.
it with, that's the issue, and that's why I'm recommending retaining about $25,000 from the taxing entities in the event that you have to refund that to the county.
I'll move that we establish, well, we don't need it as a separate fund, that we authorize that $25,000 of the increment in the North Broadway area be earmarked, set aside for any future abatement, and that Tiffany bring back an amended budget for the May meeting for approval for the year 2018.
Is there a second on the motion?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion?
I think it behooves this commission to release tax funds as soon as possible back to the people that paid them, or do them, either way. So we should do this promptly. That's my opinion.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. So if you could do that for us, we greatly appreciate it. So you'll post a notification of the budget.
Yes, we'll have Wendy.
May I assume that the refunds to the taxing authorities will go in proportion?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Do we have to have any kind of a hearing or anything on that? The budget?
The budget amendment at the next meeting will be the hearing
Okay.
for the amendment.
Thank you, Tiffany. Next item is new business. Is there any new business anyone has? Seeing none, we're at our second public comment. Again, public's invited to come up and make any comments they wish. You do have 3 minutes to express your views and concerns. And we ask that you state your name at the beginning of your statement. Is there anyone who wishes to step up and make some comments?
I'll be quick. My name is Linda Knupke in the 4th District. I just wanted to remind you guys that on March 3rd of 2015, eminent domain was prohibited for use by the voters except at the request of the property owner. I don't have the exact ballot language, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Does anybody else in attendance from the public wish to make any comments? Okay. Seeing none, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you all. Have a good
Who's the
evening.
second over there?
Oh, I guess I'm the same.
Okay.
That's the hardest part of the meeting.
It is.
It's like, who's